Okay, so I'm live again. So I'm still doing this new thing this and no one's watching. And so we'll talk about parenting. Okay, and what's going wrong with me and why we should be raising adults and not kids. And I think that little mindset change can really help people. Um, you should be preparing your kids for the adult world they're going to be subjected to. And so for me, it's like I practice that as much as possible. You know, if you cater to your kids and you sit there and try to like make them not feel bad, you're just kneecapping the hell out of them. I will admit, some people probably would think, oh, they don't love them. Ask my kids. That's what I would say. Ask my children if I was. Or ask them if they were. I'd rather have my kids be like, Dad said, yeah, I was suck and suck, as you said, instead of my kids having to come back, because they weren't prepared. If you're pushing your kids out of the house to get ready to go off to college and crying, why? That's what I would ask. Why are you crying? Are you like you didn't prepare for that? Are you worried? I wasn't shoving them out the door, but I was excited to see what they could do. And I'll be honest, doing those things. So I was like, let me see what I did. I tried to shape my kids' behavior. I tried to make sure they would be high functioning adults that could work hard for what they wanted and enjoy life. And my daughter went straight through college and is a nurse in a NICO unit, neonatal intensive care in the desert. She commutes from SoCal and just, she has like a half hour drive. And she lives in coding video games and she was shooting like 15. It's like on this third that's coming out and it's multiplayer online Sapphire Labs, we built websites, mine included. So he has his own business at 24 and he plays games and you know, he's got to build up. Always been doing for a while, but it's like me, I guess money's not a good motivator for him or which kind of sucks for my landlord. But you know, I do know how to make money, so I owe people. So that's what because I have to put my face out there and music and everything else. And hopefully I get engagement, I have the courage to do this like on hours instead of off. Um, I will check back in. Let's see. I don't want to say I'm like, but I have a lot of songs I have to upload, and you know, I will continue to talk about parenting um, and the dangers that there's nothing worse you can do for your kid is give them false information. If you keep telling your kids they're great, they are not good at something, but you keep telling them, think about what's going to happen when they're dealing with their boss and they don't have the skill set or they don't have a very good picture of their strengths and weaknesses. Being honest with your children lets them develop, it lets them know their strengths, it lets them know their weaknesses. The worst thing you could ever do for them is not prepare them. I want, I want my kids, I want anybody working with me on anything. I want them overconfident. I want them confident because they're very skilled and have enough knowledge to have the power to control their outcome. If I don't give that to somebody, then I have I'm a very big company. That means I'm attracted. I don't want them to have the knowledge, so I keep them beholden to me. No, screw that. My job is to give them the knowledge, skills, and ability to not need them. And that's how you should measure success. Did this person develop enough to where they could chart their own path and control their own outcomes? And if you didn't do that, then you kind of failed. And I'll have a lot of people that disagree, but explain to me how that should not be the goal. What better gift could you give somebody than the power to control their own outcomes? And the only way you could do that is to give them the knowledge, skills, and ability to interpret the reality that we live in for themselves and to make their own judgment. I never, ever would tell my kids what to do. All I wanted to do is get the skill set to figure out it on their own. And guess what? My kids are completely different than me. My daughter is a RN, neonatal intensive care unit. My son, he's my teacher. He's teaching me coding. He is the best knowledgeable philosopher I think I've ever talked to. He's like 24. Like talking about stoicism, through God's consciousness. And, part of my, I mean, I was just thought quantum mechanics was a cool thing. And so, I came up with my own model, and then my friend's like, "Ooh, you should probably write this down." And I'm going to listen to my kids because they're 10 times smarter than me. But, I'm going to put, I think this is actually, I'm reading this through. I'm going to put my kids' game up. He's coding, and I like the video of it. Just because this is multiplayer online. You actually give them some pretty cool dance moves that I have to learn to do. And then we'll see. I think I have it. Yeah, I think so. Brandon's name. Let's see. And this is in live coding while he's working on his game. Multiplayer. That's a flashlight. Oops. I jacked that up. We'll do it again. I think. I think I have another one. And that's his computer he built. It's old, but I think I have another one. Ooh. Okay, so I'm working on this. There we go. So, sorry. Okay, so that's one of them. Let me get rid of that. Let's see. my book. So I'll put this out there. It's only halfway done, so it's not that big of a deal. Every chapter will have a song. Um, as you can see, behavioral scientist, independent theorist. That's all I am, and I know nothing. But I'm looking for a slightly better model to operate on than I had yesterday. So we'll see what happens. I have like so far a lot. But I have a whole bunch more work to do. Let's get to oh, like we do have a problem in America, and I think just in general pop psychology and stuff where we think, that somehow trauma is a character builder. Nah, that's horse crap. Um, I have that in here. Let's see. Well, I can just talk about it. So when kids are abused, doesn't make them stronger. It just tests the coping skills they have at that time. I'm kind of tired of people saying, oh, what you went through, it made you who you are. That's okay. Well, that's kind of crap if you're acting like it was a blessing, because most people that have been through trauma struggle to get by, struggle to have the success and reach their potential. Dude, like me, I got successful, but that was despite trauma. It was despite having shitty parents. It was despite that. And my stepbrothers and stuff, you look at them, they're not dumb. My stepbrothers have talent. They're not stupid, but because we had really shitty parents, um, they suffered for it. We all did. So to me, that's crap. Trauma is not some character builder. It tests the character you have at that time. And think about how many people crumble in it that have drug problems their whole life that just can't. And you look at their childhood and stuff, and there's just a ton of dysfunction and a ton of probably violence. And so saying that is a cop out. It's a coward's way of not having to face it and deal with it and stomp it out. It does not build character. It literally just tests what you have. What you do after could build character, maybe. But if you're a kid, give me a effing break. My kids are literally proof that you don't have to suffer to be a decent person, to have character and dignity and empathy and help others. My kids are proof of that. And so I think that's just bullshit. I think that's an excuse that people use so they don't have to like address abuse. They don't have to address it. It's like, spoil the rod, spare the child, or whatever the hell that ridiculous effing saying is. It should go away. Um, there's no need to ever touch your kids. It cracks me up sometimes to listen to, a woman who was struck by her mate, and that's highly disrespectful, and yet she'll smack her kids. It's like, okay, so if it was disrespectful to you or a dude, it's like, how is it not disrespectful to them? At what age do they finally gain personal autonomy and have a right to safety? And dude, if you're their parent, you should be the person they run to when they're scared, run to for protection, not be afraid of because they might get whacked. Are you kidding me? That should never happen. And I've said it before, and it'll probably come up a ton of times. There's bad parenting. I don't think there's bad parents. Well, there's a couple, but most parents love their kids. They just don't have the skill set to know another way. And so we don't get to blame people until we show them a better model and a better way of doing things. And so I will have probably some episodes coming out with my AI influencer where, I'm going to be the turd. I'll act like the guy. I'm typical dude. And she'll call me out, and then we'll model a better version of what should have happened in this situation. With your kids, it's difficult. Like, discipline needs to guide and to teach. And so that should be done with love. You should never, if you're disciplining your kids when you're mad, I promise you, you're doing it wrong. I promise you there's a more effective way. You should only discipline your kids when you're calm, clear headed, and you know what your goal is. My kids, I'd laugh at them. If I'm going to discipline them, I should be able to do it with laughter because, dude, they're kids. This is a learning experience and it should be fun. And so they're going to mess up. Well, I'll be honest, my own son, one time I told him, dude, you got to go get in trouble. You're making me nervous. There's normal behavior. And so if somebody's too, conforming and too, they're not pushing boundaries. Well, part of growing up is pushing boundaries. And so I literally had to tell my son, I was like, dude, you got to go get in trouble. You're weirding me out a little bit. Quit following the rules too closely. Why? Because, my daughter has a tattoo on her ankle. Take a risk. You know, I told them always, you're not entitled to crap. The world doesn't give a crap. Reality doesn't give a crap. The only thing you're owed is what you earned. And even that's speculative. It doesn't always work that way. And so you're probably going to have to do it again. But eventually, most people get what they earn. But you should expect nothing else. The world doesn't owe you shit. Reality doesn't care. And it's never, ever going to try to meet you halfway or lend out a hand. Bullshit. You better grab it. And so that's, kind of how my kids were taught. I wanted to practice the real with them. And, you know, someone's boss is never catering to somebody's personality. Give me a break. It's like, dude, if you're going to tell someone like, oh, my kid, they're special. You have to learn how to talk to them. Are you kidding me? So you expect every job he gets for the boss to like change their damn system to accommodate your kid? Okay, so if your kid's going to be moving back home, I'm sorry. That's just reality because nobody is going to do that. They don't have time. That's stupid. I'm sorry. Anyway, it is. That took me longer than I thought. So I'm going to like shut this down since nobody's watching. Yeah, since no one's watching, I will end the stream. And if I get comments, I will actually answer any questions. Um, I probably didn't do very well on the people first capitalism, but the paper's up there, and it's really just a matter of simple giving back what you're getting. These people are coming in working 8 hours for your company or your organization. The least we could do is help them achieve their goals, even if they're not lined up with the companies. Most of the jobs I ever had were not my dream career. It was literally a stepping stone to get somewhere else. And so we have to understand that. And we should be helping people reach their dreams just as much as they're helping us reach ours. And I'll end it there.